I think last week I made a video talking about how perfectly balanced the legendary tier Dutch cruiser Gouden Leeuw is. But this is the thinking man's action game, and the thinking man may have seen within a matter of seconds of me making that claim that it was made with some irony or sarcasm. So, I had an idea. Well, I didn't have this idea. We have to give credit to one of the channel viewers, a wild Pikachu, who asked me during my stream on Saturday to play the Howden Loo without any benefit of concealment. And this was a fantastic idea. This match that you see playing here before you was the result of that request. We're playing the Howden Loo with no concealment whatsoever. I'll show you the commander build as we move into position here. We've got, instead of concealment mod in the third slot, we've got chromium plated barrels for better accuracy, but as such, we've given up all concealment from there. And the commander is Johann Fursner, with Norman Scott and Einstein as his two inspirations. Risk theory skill is not selected, so there's nothing in the modules, and there's nothing in the commander build buffing the concealment on Howden Loo here. We're at 11.8 kilometer detectability. And you'll see exactly how this battle plays out, even in spite of that 11.8 km detect, which in the grand scheme of things is not all that bad, especially since it's the base number for this cruiser. Now, I did some math, of course. If you applied all the concealment perks you could, those would be concealment mod, the risk theory skill on Fursner, and then Mikawa and Swirsky with high-level upgrades as the two inspirations, you'd get a C detectability range around 9.3 kilometers, which is absolutely absurd. I don't think I was playing with that detectability in the original video on how perfectly balanced the Howden Loo is. I think it was a little higher than that, but it was definitely below 9 kilometers, or 10 kilometers rather, and I think that is because I was using Mikawa as an inspiration, but not Swirsky. So figure around 9.7, 9.8 kilometers without Swirsky, something like that, below 10 km. Absolutely ridiculous, though, because the Howden Loo, of course, has the airstrikes, which we've seen a couple of those go off, but it's also got really good armor for a cruiser. The bow is a 25 millimeter plate, of course, which can be overmatched, but it's got a large icebreaker at the waterline with 40 millimeters of plating that should be able to prevent anybody from citadeling you right through the bow. And then, of course, the belt armor is also 40 millimeters on the upper belt, and the deck is 30. So this is a really well-armored cruiser with the ability to launch these airstrikes from stealth, regardless of what the concealment is, regardless of whether you have it at 9 point something or this base value of 11.8. These airstrikes can range out, at least with this build, to 13.5 kilometers. I think there's something that's extending the range in the commander build, so it's a little bit shorter than that base, but either way, you get the ability to launch these from complete stealth, and of course using an airstrike does not trip the same firing penalty that using the main battery guns does. Then on top of that, even when you are spotted, you've got this armor that can certainly mitigate some damage even from heavily armed battleships. So, I think if it was Wargaming's intention to nerf the Dutch cruisers, and specifically the Howden Loo, because they've nerfed the other Dutch cruisers in the past, this one has been left untouched. And that may just be because not everybody has completed the Bureau project for this vessel, and so it's not being widely driven around the seas enough. Once it is, and the spreadsheet numbers start coming in, then we might see Wargaming more inclined to make a buff. But what I worry is that they're not going to give it the buff that it actually needs, or not a buff, sorry, a nerf. They're not going to give it the nerf that it actually needs, which is a nerf to concealment. So we know with the 11.8 kilometer base value that we're using in this battle that we'd get down into the low 9 km range if we actually built for concealment. What would the base value need to be nerfed to in order to make the concealment somewhere around this base value? Let's say 11.8 kilometers. Well, I did some math to figure that out because we've got a number of things here. We got the concealment mod with 10% better concealment if you use that. Then you've got the Risk Theory skill, which when fully maxed gives you a 3% buff. And of course, you have Mikawa and Swirsky. Mikawa, when fully maxed or near enough, gives you a 5.7 kilometer buff to concealment. And then Swirsky a 4% when fully maxed or near enough. So, if you took all of those buffs and applied it to a base number and you wanted to get around 11.8 km, which is the current base value, we would need to have the concealment be something like 14.9 kilometers by sea as the base value. Now, that is approaching battleship territory, of course. Maybe the concealment doesn't need to be 11.8 when fully built. Maybe it could be more like 11 or 10.8, something like that. In that case, we would need a base concealment somewhere in the 13-14 kilometer range. And I think that is the nerf that the Gouden Leeuw should get, along with the rest of the Dutch cruisers. I just don't see any reason whatsoever why these things should have the ability to deal such a tremendous amount of damage with these airstrikes that they can drop from stealth or from behind the protection of an island where no surface ship can hit them with the main battery guns. And then on top of that, if they're in open water, they've got quite a bit of HP. You know, we have 51,000 on Gouden Leeuw, and then we've got the armor, of course. So why it's got all these tools going for it and it's got the concealment it has is beyond me. I don't think it should be that way. And of course, I'm sure some people who enjoy playing these Dutch cruisers are not going to be happy to hear that or hear me suggesting that wargaming should nerf the concealment so heavily. Because, well, the most common thing you get is, oh, it's so fun to play these ships, and if wargaming nerfs it, you know, they're not going to be fun anymore. That is an argument I despise, because maybe, yes, it is fun to play these overpowered things for you. It's not fun to play against them, though. So the real question is, fun for whom? There's a way to make the ship fun for you to play and a way to make the ship not miserable to play against. And I think the best thing they could do is nerf the concealment here. And even in a situation like this, where we've got Borgonia here right in front of us shooting at us, well, we've got that icebreaker going for us. His 15-inch guns would overmatch the 25mm plating. They'll do a lot of damage when they hit the superstructure, but the armor is going to prevent them from actually hitting the citadel and dealing critical damage. So you can see that even though he does get some good hits on us, none of them are catastrophic, and we're able to use our repair parties to get more HP after they occur. And then, for whatever reason, he's going to take himself behind this island unless we take him out first, which we don't. But we are saved from any further shots after that one. He nearly takes us out, but it's not quite enough. And then our teammates are going to take him out, leaving only 3 red ships left alive, one of which is a cruiser over there to the left-hand side of the screen, and looks like he is about to go down. Same thing with the enemy Gouden Leeuw out here, way out in the enemy spawn, sort of broadside to us. Of course, if we take a shot at him and get spotted in return, we've got about 4,000 HP left until we have our next heal, so we might end up going down, which is why we hold fire. Anyway, you've seen throughout the course of this battle that we've managed to get, I think, the Witherer and the First Blood medals, and 147,000 damage with a victory here. We survived the whole thing. At the end of the day, we're at the top of the leaderboard with the Gouden Leeuw. Not exactly a fantastically crazy result in terms of damage done. 147k is good, I'd say, by anybody's standards, but it's not, you know, in the 200,000 range. But in any case, this battle, I think, is a good piece of proof or indication that the Gouden Leeuw would be able to function just fine if it had its concealment nerfed. And it should. So there's your constructive criticism for the day, Wargaming. Hopefully somebody's watching this video, they hear what I'm saying, and they agree with me, because I do think the Gouden Leeuw needs at least a concealment nerf, and I think it wouldn't be a bad idea if they went the same direction with the rest of the Dutch cruiser line. Nerfs to HE Alpha and whatnot, bomb Alpha, bomb accuracy, that's fine. but I think the concealment that these things have is fundamentally unbalanced and needs changing. Let me know what you think in the comments, give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.